This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski.
When the central piece of evidence in your case is a bullet casing, has more controversy around it than a pineapple on pizza, you might have a problem. Richard Allen's case hinges dramatically on one small piece of metal allegedly linking his gun to a double homicide. But the reliability of forensic ballistics is being questioned more intensely than ever before. And I'm also questioning the legitimacy of that bullet ever having those markings on it when it was put into evidence in 2016. There's a way they might have got those markings on there. Joining us, retired FBI Special Agent Robin Dreeke, former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, to help dissect what exactly is going on here with the bullet that has convicted Richard Allen of these murders, and to help us break down the interrogations and the jailhouse phone calls that have just recently been released from Richard Allen, which are extremely heartbreaking. Trigger warning. Robin, I know you've seen a little bit of it thus far. We're going to break some pieces down, but just the 10,000-foot overview, what has been your reaction when you got a chance to see and hear those interrogations and those phone calls?
Yeah, so the first one I watched a bit of was the accusation about and the discussion around the bullet casing and the bullet. And the first thing that struck me was Richard Allen's reaction to it. Again, you cannot, statement analysis and behavioral analysis and all these things for truth and veracity is 50-50 at best with the best in the world. But I will tell you, his reaction was not the reaction of someone who was guilty. And throughout every interview and interrogation with him, throughout the accusation, the thing I'm generally looking for, and we should all look for, we all pick up on, is congruency of tempo. In other words, does your body language, does your verbals, does everything maintain the same consistency? Because they start out with a very open-ended comfort, inducing baselining of asking him his name, verifying his address, doing all these things. So you're getting what his normal looks like. And then as they start escalating the discussion into other areas, you don't see a shift in him. It's actually very congruent. He continues to be helpful. And then when they brought up the bullet casing, the immediate flat denial, not mine, not possible. I mean, it was boom, 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 boom. There was not it wasn't rehearsed. There was not a stress moment. There was not a what do I say here moment, because they hit it with him as a surprise, and he was a surprise. So what you saw was they hit it with him as a surprise, and did you see the surprise on his face? Yeah, not a surprise. Oh, you got me. Surprises, not mine.
Yeah,
that's what struck me immediately on that one.
Everything running through his head, like how on earth? There's no way. Yeah, and we're going to get back to the bullet here in a minute, but before the bullet was even brought up, they tried to bring him in and get him to admit something that he says he did not do with the bridge guy picture, saying that the sign says, I got experts saying that that's you in the picture, and the experts say it, and really trying to make him believe that there's a lot of people that are behind him being the guy in the picture, despite the only actual experts who have ever looked at the picture and have analyzed it have said it was Ron Logan. No expert has ever said that it was Richard Allen, and they can't say it to any sort of, perfect scientific degree. But some of the experts who actually have looked at it have said Ron Logan, and they know that, but that eludes them. This is the very beginning. This is right when they bring him in, and they've put the pictures down. And they're saying, we think it's you. Let's take a look at how that all went down in his reactions here. This is the first interrogation.
Good luck finding anything that points in that direction. I mean, it's not me. You're not going to make me believe it's me. You're not going to find anything that ties me to those murders. So I'm not really that concerned. You went from trying to, I don't know what you want to say, get my trust, and then slowly lure me into telling you I killed somebody, and I'm not going to do it. I don't know where this changed course.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time, really not. I just want you to put yourself in the situation where we as police officers are looking at all the evidence that we have and what you've told us right now, okay? Okay, not trying to give you a hard time. Just want to make sure that we get everything taken care of here. That's why we wanted to look at the things that we wanted to look at.
And that's not going to happen now. I mean, like I said, we're done here. So arrest me or take me home.
I understand.
So arrest me or take me home. I'm done.
These
This is stupid.
Okay. So that day, on that day, you went out there on the bridge, and that you were wearing the same clothing basically the same clothing that this person here is wearing.
That's what you think. I don't know how you can tell that that's a black Carhartt coat, which is what I told you, a black or blue Carhartt coat. Blue jeans.
I'm curious. I mean, obviously, he's staying stable. His story never, ever changes.
I got another thing to observe.
Yeah.
Too, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead with what your thoughts are there, because I have another question for you.
So, in generally non-verbally, too, is when you, again, these are broad swaths when you're assessing nonverbal behavior. I don't do deep dives of all the micro expressions going on, but you do broad swaths of understanding behavior, what's going on here. So here he is in a situation where the law enforcement officer is telling him he thinks it's him. And that's him in the photo. And so let's look at the not just the tempo, because again, Richard Allen's or Ricky, as his wife calls him, body language remains very consistent, very congruent. The tempo is not changing. Look what he's doing. He's leaning in and over. In general, when you are actually the culprit and the bad guy, and they're showing you something at you, get nonverbal distancing. There is no distancing he's making from that photo because it's not him. He doesn't feel it's so see what I mean? I said, so that's what it's another one of those little moments where he's not distancing himself physically from what he's being presented.
Yeah. Again,
nothing is ever conclusive in these things, but it's another data point that says he does not see that as him because he's not distancing himself from it. He's like, that's not me. Go.
And that's just one piece of this. And if anybody wants to watch the whole hour some of this initial interview, please do so. It's on the channel. They keep going over and over. And I get there's interrogation tactics in this, but I mean, from your standpoint, I mean, at what point do you go, okay, how many times can we go over this with this guy and he's not changing? They don't seem to be receiving anything that he's giving them. They don't seem to be reacting to anything that he's giving them in an appropriate way. They just keep pounding and expecting different results. And again, You've interrogated people before in a counterintelligence area. This is local police, but what are they doing here? Are they doing this really wrong, or is this normal and how it should be done when interviewing someone of this nature?
There's a lot of I don't like criticizing anyone because I don't know what their strategy was. I don't know what they were doing. It's not the way I would do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I tell you, the thing that really strikes me the most, because now we're reversing optic. We're no longer thinking and putting ourselves in Richard Allen's shoes and assessing what he's seeing these things for the first time. Now let's put ourselves in law enforcement shoes. Is the behavior of the law enforcement in their interview and interrogating him, I mean, ask yourself this. Do you feel, because feeling is an emotion that we get from observing behaviors around us, do you feel that they believe that he, like in their souls, that they personally believe he did this, or do you get the feeling that they were told he did this? I
was wondering that too, because that's
I feel an emotional detachment. So if they actually believed, think about this, if they actually personally believed that he murdered two little girls, would they be able to maintain that good old boy congruent? Because they haven't deviated their baseline either. They're talking to him the exact same way when they're asking about his address, to the exact same way this is you on the bridge, to the exact same way as the bullet casing, to the exact same ways as these two girls are dead. They have not changed their effect either. So they're having a non-emotional response to everything they're doing, indicating to me that they're playing a role that they were given.
Yeah, I was thinking of that yesterday because I said, I don't know if these people truly believe that he did it or if they're getting more frustrated because they're not going to be able to go back to whoever they need to go back to and say, look, I got what you wanted me to get. Yeah. Because they're not getting it. They're getting so mad and frustrated. And you can see it in another clip later where it's like they are just angry because they're not getting what they're getting. Not necessarily that Rick Allen is saying that he's innocent. It's just damn it, my job, they're going to be mad at me because they said, go get this, and I didn't get that. That's what I'm wondering.
And see, now as an interviewer, I'll go back to that detail you asked too, is what they keep trying to lead him down the path. They're not asking questions to have him explain what this is, explain what this is. Because when you're interviewing someone, what you're doing during an interrogation a lot of times is you are setting up like they did. They did a good job of establishing initial rapport. They did a good job of inspiring him to trust them. And he was very comfortable. And then you start then having them explain away incongruencies of what they're observing, incongruencies of what they're seeing from their data points and their evidence bringing in. Well, can you help me explain then? And what they said is, this bullet casing was from your gun. Instead, you rephrase it as like, what do you think is the reason why they said that this bullet casing came from your gun? See what I mean? You reverse it. Instead of making it about what they think, they need to inquire about what it is he can explain away that's being accused of. So it's reversing it, and they never did that once.
They only give him the one option of basically admit that you did this.
Yes, the entire time.
And that's it. And there's no other possible explanation whatsoever. Let's take a look. This is now the second interrogation. So the first one was when they went and questioned him. The initial one actually was back when the girls died, when he raised his hand and said, "How can I help?" And then they sat on that for 6 years. And then all this time later, they're looking for somebody. And there's somebody up for election, too. So it'd be really helpful if we found the killer. And then they go after him. So there's the initial, way back, the second, which is more current day. And then shortly after that, they get a warrant. They search his house. They take his gun, although keep in mind there was no gun used in this crime. But I get you're searching for you're looking into a murder suspect. You're going to take weapons. And they take his gun out of his house. And then we get back to the second interview, and suddenly there's bullet evidence here. There's this ballistic evidence that a bullet was found at the scene. And I believe there probably was. I think it'd be kind of hard to trace all the way back to the initial murders or fake that this thing was in evidence all that time. But they're saying it came from his gun. How interesting, because that's never been brought up before. Here's more of that.
I don't want to be included to begin with. So until the point that you have something that tells you that I did this and you want to subpoena or arrest me or something, I've got nothing to worry about. So I'm not real concerned here, but your attitudes towards me have definitely changed, and I don't like the fact that, it feels more like I'm being interrogated, and so then you're going to tell me that you've already talked to my wife and my daughter and stuff. Like, how straightforward is that?
Here's more on the bullets. This here is the same.
There's no way possible. There is no way possible that a round from my gun ended up at a murder scene. It's not possible. So something's obviously wrong.
Something is wrong.
Exactly.
We both know what's wrong.
I didn't do it. And I'm not going to sit here all day trying to convince you that I didn't do it. No. You obviously think that I did.
I'm not going to sit here all day and convince you that I think that you did do it, Rick. I'm just laying down some of the evidence that we have.
Okay.
And we're going to get more.
I don't think so.
I'm only giving you the opportunity to get out in front of this. This is your opportunity. Like I said earlier, the truth is easy.
I've got nothing to get out in front of. I'm not going to tell you I did something I didn't do.
Okay.
Okay.
And I don't want you to tell me something that you didn't do.
Then stop asking me to.
I'm not. I'm just asking you to tell the truth about this day. I asked you to go back and rehash it, and you wouldn't. Why?
I told you, because I'm not going to... You guys are like trying to trick me into doing something.
I'm not trying to trick you.
I told you what happened. You've already got it. There's no need for me to tell you again.
Story.
Whatever. There aren't any. I don't know how I can make this any clearer. I'm not going to tell you that I had something to do with this.
Again, leaning in there.
So not just that, but first of all, people that have, in general, people that have done something wrong and that are being accused of it and they've actually done it, and are trying to lie about it, you generally typically see panic responses of rapid excuses, rapid changing the subject. I mean, you see a lot of different behaviors of stress being induced, because when you're being accused and you know you've done it, you have stress responses in your brain, and it leaks out of you verbally, non-verbally. You're not seeing any of that. You're seeing exasperation with him, which is congruent with some veracity here. The other thing too is, notice when I don't generally do a lot of nonverbal assessments, but he's so dramatic with this. He is saying, I didn't do it. And now he's not saying it like this with high compression, open. In other words, anything that's up and out, palms up, pencil displays, all the body language that is up and out says, I have high comfort with the things I'm saying. And as he's saying, I didn't do it, high comfort, saying that. In other words, we have very good congruence between the words he's saying and the emotions he's feeling as he's saying it. That's why we believe him, because there's congruency, because they are just exhausting him. And that's why think about this. If you're a bad guy, you've done something wrong, and they keep poking at you, you're thinking, oh, they're not believing me. I have to give them a better story. Oh, they're still not believing. I got to try this story. Let me try this angle. He's not doing that because there's nothing else to tell. He didn't do it. See what I mean? He's not inventing anything because there's nothing to invent around a lie or fictition. Ugh.
The tactics that they're using in this round, and we're going to watch another clip here where his wife gets involved. No tactics. I don't even know what's going, because it's so. I know in this country they can make things up, right? I mean, doesn't seem to be any laws that prevent it, because they're telling him that the experts are saying this, and the experts and we have witnesses, and we got this and we got that, and many things that they don't have and they never produced in court.
Groupthink and social proof is what they're trying to use to convince him to confess to something.
But they're making it up. And I know that they can do that here, but I know I've talked to other folks, and I know our listeners and viewers in other countries are always kind of enamored with the way that we interview people or interrogate them, because there's laws over in the UK and such where you can't lie to the person you're interrogating. You can't tell them things that are not true, that you don't factually actually have evidence of, to try and get them or elicit a response. But they do a lot of that here, and they go to his wife and they convince her that this science of this bullet is, bulletproof, pardon the pun, and there's no room for conjecture or anything, when in reality, there's a ton of room for this. There's so many problems with this sort of science. And then they talk to neighbors and they pressure him, and how is that going to elicit any sort of confession from someone who didn't do it?
I don't know. It's nothing I've ever done. I've never, Now, Tony, here's what typically will happen. I'll try to bring out a prop for you for this.
Okay.
So typically,
puppets. Are you going to do a puppet show?
Yes. I don't think I was ever allowed to do, during I didn't rely on that kind of stuff, because generally, if I'm going to interview a subject and do a subject interviews, I actually know they're guilty. Yeah. Because I have all the data points. I'm not trying to see if you're guilty. I actually know you're guilty.
Sure.
So generally, what you'll do is, imagine this is a file. If anyone saw the movie The Matrix, Mr. Smith does it to Neo at the very beginning and say, we have a very large file on you, Mr. Neo. So what happens is you can use props and you can insinuate. In other words, I can insinuate, like this, imagine this is like, 3 inches thick.
Sure.
I got a lot of data. I got a lot of evidence talking about the bullet casing. So why don't you tell me in your words what you think is in this file? See what I mean? So in other words, you can use props and insinuate without actually telling untruths. And that way you put it on him. Yeah. And then what you should do is you're listening to words he says, and then you go back at a different angle. You ask the same question differently. And then you say, well, I heard that it could be potentially this. Would you be able to explain that away to me? And how does that, so see what I mean? You keep poking at the same thing from different angles to see if he's consistent with the way he explains it. Because if it's a lie, the likelihood of consistency won't be there. Yeah. It'll be all over the place because we have a very, very hard time remembering untruths. And then when you link it to other events that happen later on, it all falls apart. And then that's what you do as an interview, an interrogator, say, well, can you help me understand why you said this here, but it doesn't match what you said here?
Did these guys
go further explain? So
it feels like the investigators here don't even know what to be looking for.
They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, we're gonna be hard, and that's it, and be like, hopefully we get what we want.
I look at their age. They seem to be seasoned. They've done this a bunch of times. That's why the way they're doing this, they either have never done an interview of this caliber before, because they have nice conversation skills. I think they're great conversationalists, but they haven't done this type.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, though, to me, it still looks like they were told, go get this from this guy.
Yeah.
And they didn't necessarily believe it themselves, but they're told to get it. So when you don't believe in what you're doing and the evidence isn't there, you got to make shit up, man.
And my question about that is, who's telling him to do that and why?
Yep.
And is that just because they don't want to look bad? They don't want to look like they're incompetent. So go get whatever. I mean, is this just covering for incompetency or lack of good investigation? Because obviously we know the history. There's so many other people that look pretty damning in this. And just go get it. We got to get this done. What's the motivation there for telling them to go do that? That is my big question. Because that's going to tell us a lot, whether it's about ego and this just totally went off the rails, or if this is covering for something else. And that's what I'm wondering.
Sick of the ads?
We are too.
Start listening with no commercials now and get access to all of our episodes in advance of everyone else.
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
True Crime Today Premium Plus.
Sign up now.